Oh, we have the main topic of the podcast. We were teasing toward this topic, actually. We have a famous podcaster, Gilbert Arenas, delivering hot takes. And he became like Stephen A. of, basketball players doing podcasts. And he had this infamous quote about getting rid of all Europeans. Okay, the context was like this.
Sounds so bad when you just say that, but that is an actual quote.
The question was like how NBA could improve the defense.
Yeah.
And he suggested, his main suggestion was getting rid of
all the
Europeans.
Euros.
Yeah,
out.
Because they play no defense, they're soft, they can only pass and shoot. And the way NBA changed actually, made the game easier for Europeans. And that was the part of the NBA's agenda, global game that he mentioned a few times.
Can we see, what do we agree with from all of what he said? Is there any, I would agree that individual defense of Europeans is probably worse, just because in Europe you can defend as a team better than as an individual. You don't need to rely so much on your ability to stay in front of your opponent. You can rely on the defensive system. I can agree with that, but that's not to say that what he said was right. But what do we agree with that? Do we agree with that? Probably.
But that's such a generalization.
Yeah.
No,
but if we have an, let's say, average European player or average American player,
well, now
I think that's
what. If again, are we talking on-ball defense?
Yeah, on-ball.
But that's just part of the defense.
I understand.
So I agree here.
In the NBA's,
but off-ball defense, I take a European.
And I agree with that. Okay, and another thing, what
that's
else?
out of question. Yeah, off-ball defense is clear. I go with Europeans as well.
Yeah, okay. Is there anything else we can agree?
Okay, speed,
before?
jumping ability, Europeans are not as athletic as most of the Europeans, or average European player is not as athletic as the American player. But probably that's pretty much it.
Well, I feel like, okay, so do you guys agree that the main thing he forgot to mention was Stephen Curry, basically? That's the guy who changed the game?
I thought that he, guys like James Harden as well benefit a lot from these rule changes and, getting more calls.
He basically, what stood out to me the most is that the reason he mentions is bullshit. Like, the reason for those changes were that the NBA wanted to have more games to increase the scoring. They did not want games to finish 92-94. They want that games that finished over 100. And that's why they knew that more scoring means more highlights, more dunks, more drama equals more money. And look where the NBA is right now. Look at all those TV deals. Look at the salaries of average NBA player. That Tobias Harris is getting almost the same amount as one of the best NFL players. And the NBA removed the defensive 3 seconds in 2002. The NBA removed the hand checking in 2005, and the scoring immediately went by 4 points in the next season in 2005. So after that, happened that teams just basically find out the best ways to play basketball. Everybody became a shooter, so the spacing became better. And this is why we have more scoring than ever, because the teams are so smart, the players are so smart and skilled. And everybody's a shooter, so it's really hard to defend. And
analytics got involved as well. That was a huge game changer.
True,
going for threes instead of twos and eliminating basically mid-range game.
Right. So to me, it's just, I don't know. It's a statement of, because he has to stay relevant in this. I don't know.
He actually doesn't need to stay relevant. His podcast is one of the most viewed podcasts. In the NBA, actually.
Because he's saying things like this. He's shouting things like this that doesn't make sense at all. Like, to me, Arenas and Kendrick Perkins are on the top tier list of,
worst podcasters?
I don't know. Worst
talking
takes.
Heads.
Worst takes, because I don't want...
Loudest ones.
Yeah.
Another thing he said there, but I don't think you read that. He said that the Europeans have no handles, and then said only Luka has handles, and then tell me another European who right now plays in the NBA.
But why he was focusing on Europeans? Like, there are other
I
international
know.
players.
There are Americans who can't.
First of all, he said
dribble.
that there are 150 euros European players in the NBA. Actually,
Is it 80, 64?
No, to start the season there was 125.
and
Internationals.
internationals, and there were 64 European players. So we're talking about 14% of NBA players coming from Europe. So, I mean, does it even make sense that getting rid of 14% of European players will improve the defense? And also,
doesn't make sense
NBA
anyways.
try, to change the game for 14% of Europeans?
He said, the way they said it, get rid of the Europeans and the defense will come back. How is it going to come back if the habits of the players and the way they've learned to play basketball now of the new generation is the way it is? It's not about the Europeans. It's about the how they play now. It's just stupid, right?
A lot of stupid things.
I don't know why are we commenting this, to be honest. Like,
we need to react. I
No,
didn't
we-
see
we-
any
yeah,
response
yeah.
to Gilbert Arenas, actually. Maybe because the podcast was on weekend, and it's not the most popular time, and you might have some responses, but, there were a lot of bad takes. He mentioned college as a place to learn defense, and he mentioned what college do Europeans go to. It's a funny thing, but because I agree that in college you get, not the background, but a lot of information on how to play defense. Maybe they teach you right habits how to play defense, and especially off-ball defense. But at the same time, there's a funny fact that in his glorified era, when Gilbert Arenas played, 6 consecutive Defensive Player of the Year award winners were coming straight from the high school. Kevin Garnett, Dwight Howard, Tyson Chandler, and actually then Marc Gasol, European, won the Defensive Player of the Year award. And what college do Europeans go to? We're going through probably the most physical college that we have. EuroLeague, European basketball, even in those domestic leagues, they're facing grown men. They're facing 30-year-old guys who are dominating in the EuroLeague. They're really physical out there. They're not getting cheap calls. It's really hard to get for them to get any calls. So they're always out-hustled. They need to adapt to those demanding coaches with their defenses, offenses, a lot of attacks involved. So that's a better college than those most of those Americans do.
I feel like another thing to add here, we've seen Europeans who weren't really successful in the NBA, and this is about the whole notion of Europeans are soft. Right now, would you say the Europeans are tougher than the Americans, or the other way around? Because I would say Jokic, one of the toughest in terms of physical strength and of course skill is a lot of it, but he's freaking tough. All the big men from Europe are tough men. Luka, I mean, he's just the body of his.
I mean, look what happens when Team USA is playing all those European countries like Germany and Serbia. They're usually out-rebounded, out-hustled. Europeans are more physical. They cannot adapt to this physical game, not getting calls that they were used to get in the NBA. We're talking about EuroLeague and Europe in general being way more physical league, especially from the defensive standpoint.
And then what I was gonna say as well, the guys who didn't have a good career, that were stars in Europe and came to the NBA and just left after a season or so, they were all physically not there for NBA standards. I did a video about this. I think how many NBA, how international the NBA is right now, actually. And I looked at all the successful guards. They're all like 6'6", 6'7" or so. So like about 2 meters tall. They were all athletic, able to defend and all those things. And the ones who were only there for a season or less were all the undersized ones. So the Europeans that make it to the NBA, they are the tough ones as well. So I don't know where's this notion of softness still in his head in 2024.